Hello again. Last time, we talked about playing the game with only one Pokémon and compared the 3 starters. This time, we pick up from where we left off in part 1 and take a closer look at the Pokémon found in another route, which leads us to a few conclusions about Pokémon distribution. We'll also go ahead to Viridian Forest to talk about the game's dungeon areas in general. Back in part 1, we follow the game until the point where the player can finally capture a Pokémon other than the starter. There are 2 possible routes that can be followed at this point. Route 2 to the north, and Route 22 to the west. This route is, for now, completely optional, but rewards the player's exploration with a surprising variety of new Pokémon, some of which are only found elsewhere much later. First, we have the bird Spearow. Spearow is pretty much a more offensive alternative to Pidgey, with the advantage of evolving as fast as Rattata. Its base stat total is slightly below Pidgey when evolved, but much more oriented to offense. Its greatest weakness is the overwhelming lack of moves. It takes until level 33 as a Fearow to learn a move decisively stronger than the very weak Peck. The stars of the route are Nidoran, which come in male and female variety, something exclusive to them in Generation 1. Those are Pokémon that evolve to their second forms at level 16 and can be evolved to the third form through an item, the Moonstone. Conveniently, there is one of those just before the second Gem City, which means they can reach their final forms of Nidoking and Nidoqueen very fast. Not only are those 2 amongst the best in terms of base stats total, they learn pretty strong moves by themselves, especially if evolved early, and can learn an incredible variety of moves by items. There is a reason why Nidoking is the preferred Pokémon for speedrunners. Of course, there is a drawback to all this: the Moonstone itself. The game balances access to 2 of its most powerful Pokémon by gating them behind the only item used for evolution that cannot be easily bought. There are 4 Pokémon that evolve using a Moonstone, both Nidorans, Jigglypuff, and Clefairy, and a total of 5 Moonstones hidden throughout the whole game. There are enough stones to evolve 1 of each, with 1 spare, but the scarcity of the item keeps the player from having a team of 6 Nidoqueens or Nidoqueens right at the start. The other evolution stones, Fire, Water, Leaf, and Thunder, can be easily purchased, but come with their own drawbacks. With an evolution stone, players can evolve any compatible Pokémon as soon as they wish, but stone-evolved Pokémon tend to learn almost no moves, and the moves they do learn tend to be worse. Growlithe, for example, learns Flamethrower at level 50, but only if it still hasn't evolved. Route 22 also has the distinction of having the only optional rival battle in the game. Blue meets Red once again with a level 9 Pidgey and his chosen starter at level 8. As odd as the starter's lower level might be, due to its higher base stats, it's actually still significantly stronger than the Pidgey. This battle will still most likely be too much for a player recently out of Pallet Town, but there is literally no drawback to simply avoiding it, leaving it as an extra challenge and experience. Blue tells the player that the way forward is impassable without the 8 badges, helping lost players understand the game's main objective and directing them back to Viridian and through Route 2 and into Viridian Forest. Back to the main path, following north through Viridian City, we finally reach Viridian Forest. Viridian Forest is the first dungeon area of the game. Those areas are usually long, maze-like areas populated with wild Pokémon and trainers that usually serve as the main challenges between cities. Not counting the villain hideouts, which are focused on trainer battles, the dungeons in Red and Blue are Viridian Forest, Mount Moon, Diglett Cave, Dark Cave, Lavender Tower, Seafoam Island, Cinnabar Mansion, Power Plant, Victory Road, and the Unknown Dungeon, also known as Cerulean Cave. What sets Viridian Forest apart from all of those is the fact that it's the only one with tall grass on it. In every single other of these areas, the player can be attacked by Pokémon at any moment, while the forest offers long stretches without tall grass, making it easier for the starter trainers, as they can decisively avoid wild Pokémons. This is also where the first NPC trainers other than Blue are met, all of them bug catchers. They are all very weak, with Pokémon initially even weaker than Blue's starter back at Oak's lab. Some of them have Kakunas and Metapods, two Pokémon that, on NPC hands, only know the defensive move Harden, and give substantially more experience than average at this point. Also, when battling a trainer, the player's Pokémon get an additional 50% experience. Those initial bug catchers are just an easy introduction to the concept of battling other people. Viridian Forest is also the first area to have one Pokémon that is much harder to find than the rest, and that happens to be series mascot Pikachu. While an electric type won't be of any use on the soon-to-come first gym battle against Brock, it's still a very powerful offensive type. Not to mention capturing the series mascot can be rewarding by itself, even though that wasn't exactly its position when those games were made. In yellow, the Pikachu here are replaced with Pidgeotto to mirror the anime. They're also not useful for Brock, but a Pidgey normally evolves at level 18, while those are level 9, much stronger than most Pokémon around the same level. Many other areas have those species that are notably rarer than any of the others, such as Clefairy on Mount Moon or Chansey and Taurus on the Safari Zone. And those rarer Pokémon have a tendency to be stronger than usual. And speaking of the Safari Zone, I'm gonna take a few moments to jump ahead and talk about this rather unique location. The Safari Zone is the one place in the whole game where the usual mechanic of weakening Pokémon to catch them is not present. Instead, the player throws balls directly at Pokémon who have a chance of running away from the battle. Other than simply throwing balls, players also have at their disposition the options of throwing stones and bait. It's never really explained in-game, but stones increase the chance the Pokémon will run away and that it will be successfully caught, while bait does the opposite. This area has, by far, the biggest variety of Pokémon in all the game, but the capture method makes them much harder to capture. You can spend hours looking for a Chansey or a Taurus, only to have it run away on you immediately. And that's where we get to our first conclusion. Remember back in Route 1, where there were those tiny Rattata that were easy to catch and strong in the early game but weak later? The Safari Zone is the exact opposite to that. Some Pokémon found here are incredibly hard to capture, but are easily within the game's best. In fact, Chansey, Taurus, and the Exeggutor are some of the best in Generation 1, especially in multiplayer, and they are all found here. The takeaway from this is, you can finish the game with basically anything. It's not a hard game. But if you want to play at a higher level, there's a challenge for you. Taurus, for example, it's basically a super-powered Raticate. Similar stat distribution, similar versatility, but much higher stats. Out of Viridian Forest, Red finally reaches the first city with a Pokémon gym, Pewter City. There's a clear way out of the city through east, but an NPC won't let the player leave until the gym is defeated. On the next and final part of this analysis on Pokémon Red and Blue, we'll look at the first gym battle, and then pull back and look at the game's structure as a whole. Finally, we'll close off this series looking at the game's final battle and using that as a jumping off point to talk about what was the focus of Game Freak's team when making Generation 1. Also briefly touching on the multiplayer aspect. Thank you for watching. If you're interested, last week I released the first part of my analysis on the indie game Undertale, and if you like my content, please consider subscribing or sharing my video wherever you like. Thanks again, bye.